Hello everyone. Today I will introduce you to rival pairs that might seem like simple business competitors on the surface, but in reality, behind each pair is an epic story spanning decades. Simply put, these are rivals where just mentioning one side means the other will instantly be brought into the conversation. And as time goes on, the level of competition between these pairs gets significantly fiercer. Let's start right away with the first pair of rivals, YouTube and Facebook. If we talk about things that change the way we use the internet, YouTube is undoubtedly one of the main characters. Simply put, with just a phone, a webcam, or even a beat-up camera, anyone, anywhere can become a star by posting their own videos on YouTube. Therefore, YouTube's position in the online video market is solid as a rock. But actually, the tech world is never that peaceful. YouTube's seemingly unshakable empire is panting heavily because of a rival you might not expect: Facebook. The days when Facebook was only used to post statuses like, "The weather is so nice today," are long gone. Facebook started playing big by introducing autoplay videos, then adding a bunch of new features specifically for video, then live streaming, and then changing its algorithm so videos appear densely on your newsfeed. As a result, your Facebook wall now looks like a variety TV show. And although Facebook hasn't caught up to YouTube in video watch time, many predict it's only a matter of time. Of course, YouTube isn't sitting still to be suffocated. Google, YouTube's parent company, prepared a new project called Backstage, aiming to turn YouTube into a full-fledged social network after Google Plus failed. This means while Facebook is determined to capture the video viewing market share, YouTube wants to snatch back the social media market share that Facebook almost entirely dominates. Therefore, between these two giants, a war will take place where just a slight stumble could mean losing everything. This could be one of the fiercest technological confrontations in the coming years. And when talking about classic confrontations in the business world, after the YouTube-Facebook battle, we must immediately mention another equally intense pair: McDonald's and Burger King. This is a war that, simply put, has lasted more than half a century and almost never stops. This war started back in the mid-20th century when both brands were just emerging and fighting for every single piece of market share. In 1957, Burger King looked around and realized that selling 15-cent hamburgers like McDonald's would result in a long-term loss. So, they decided to play differently by launching the Whopper, a bigger, meatier burger with a slightly higher price tag. At 37 cents, McDonald's certainly wouldn't sit still. In 1968, they launched the Big Mac, and this item quickly became a global icon. But the real tension exploded in 1982 when Burger King launched an ad campaign firmly claiming that customers preferred the Whopper over the burgers from McDonald's and Wendy's. McDonald's and Wendy's immediately reacted and sued Burger King for false advertising. You'd think that was it, but no. In 1997, Burger King released new French fries with a bluntly straightforward slogan: "A taste that beats even McDonald's." McDonald's retaliated with an ad campaign specifically designed to drag down their rival. This war only cooled down when Burger King constantly changed owners and CEOs, making their brand strategy too unstable to keep fighting like before. And if the McDonald's-Burger King war was a battle of taste, next, we will move to a much higher level: Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, Microsoft and Apple. Many people compare these two to the sun and the moon because their personalities and starting points were almost complete opposites. Bill Gates was born into a wealthy family and attended Harvard, a school whose name alone sounds top tier. Meanwhile, Steve Jobs grew up in much more deprived conditions, attended Reed College, but didn't go to class very often. Gates was the type of genius addicted to computers since childhood, while Jobs, from the very beginning, was very skillful, creative, and had a special aesthetic vision. Then, they met exactly at the time when the computer revolution was taking place like a storm. Interestingly, neither Gates nor Jobs graduated from college, nor did they take any business training courses, but they knew how to make money and use it to compete fiercely. In the first 2 decades of the war, Bill Gates was still in the lead. Microsoft's Windows operating system became the default on almost all computers globally, while Apple continuously struggled. By 1997, Steve Jobs was forced to accept a $150 million investment from Gates just so Apple could survive. It sounds a bit ironic, but thanks to that investment, a new chapter opened. Because in the last 15 years of his life, Jobs almost completely turned the tables. He launched the iPod, iPhone, and iPad, products that changed the entire industry and pulled Apple from the brink of bankruptcy to become one of the most valuable companies in the world. And even though they competed with each other for a very long time, Gates and Jobs understood each other's achievements better than anyone else. So their relationship was actually quite good, at least for many years before Steve Jobs passed away. And if the war between Bill Gates and Steve Jobs was a technology race, now we will go to another legendary battle that takes place everywhere. Coca-Cola and Pepsi. This is considered a war that has crossed the boundaries of both time and culture, and is also one of the most important battles in the history of capitalism. The story began in 1886 when a Georgia chemist named John Pemberton first introduced Coca-Cola. At that time, this beverage was promoted as being for people with physical and mental disorders. 7 years later, Pepsi appeared and joined the game. During the Great Depression, Pepsi took advantage of the difficult context to boost sales, getting closer to Coca-Cola than ever before. But up until the 1950s, Pepsi was still only in second place. Then they decided to change tactics by recruiting Al Steele, a former Coca-Cola advertising executive. He left Coca-Cola feeling frustrated and full of ambition, so when he went to Pepsi, he started to counterattack. Coca-Cola, on the other hand, didn't even bother to mention Pepsi by name. They considered it just a copycat. But shortly after, Coca-Cola began to realize that if they kept underestimating their rival like that, they would soon be overtaken. And that was exactly the case. In 1979, for the first time in history, Pepsi's supermarket sales surpassed Coca-Cola's. But that golden age didn't last long either. By 1996, Fortune magazine declared that the war between Pepsi and Coca-Cola was over. Since then, Pepsi shifted its focus to developing snacks and healthier products. On Halloween, Pepsi released an image with the message, "We wish you a scary Halloween," implying that the Pepsi can dressed up as a Coca-Cola can to scare people, kind of calling Coca-Cola a monster. Immediately, Coca-Cola countered by changing the caption to, "Everybody wants to be a hero." And that was the verbal sparring of a war that has lasted more than 135 years. And after talking about the carbonated drink war between Coca-Cola and Pepsi, now we will step into a confrontation as dramatic as a movie, because it truly is the battlefield of movies. DC and Marvel. Both of these companies own a massive library of superhero and villain characters. So it was almost inevitable that they would clash on every front, from comics and games to cinema. This war actually started back in the 1930s when both DC and Marvel were two comic book publishers competing bit by bit. Then, they gradually expanded into video games, and now they are fighting for every centimeter on the big screen, the small screen, and streaming platforms. Over the past few decades, both sides have released a series of superhero movies, each with its own monuments. But looking at the timeline, from the 80s to the end of the 20th century, DC had a clear advantage with blockbusters like Superman in 1978, Batman in 1989, or Batman and Robin in 1997. That was a time when the superhero image was almost synonymous with DC. But the situation reversed very quickly. In recent years, Marvel not only caught up but also pulled ahead by building a model later known as the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU, where all movies connect to each other along a common storyline. From Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor to the Avengers, every movie release became an event. Marvel created an entire superhero empire that fans worldwide had to continuously follow. As for DC, despite still owning extremely powerful characters like Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, they were sometimes criticized for lacking consistency in tone, directors, and long-term strategy. Therefore, at this present moment, the war between DC and Marvel shows no signs of slowing down. Fans are always divided, arguing, and waiting to see which studio will make the next move. And if you think the war between DC and Marvel was dramatic enough, now we will come to a scientific confrontation that is as tense as a movie, and even affects how humans use electricity today. Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla. The story began in 1884. At that time, Thomas Edison, one of the world's most famous inventors, invited a young Serbian engineer named Nikola Tesla to his office in New York. Tesla had previously worked at Edison's branch in Paris, researching direct current, DC, which Edison considered the pinnacle of technology at the time. But during his work, Tesla came up with an entirely new direction, alternating current, AC, which allowed electricity to be transmitted over very long distances much more efficiently than Edison's DC. Upon hearing this, Edison immediately dismissed it. He considered Tesla's idea to be dangerous, time-consuming, and impractical. So, Edison not only refused to support it, but also thought Tesla was making things up. Tesla didn't give up. He designed a series of new products hoping to receive the $50,000 bonus that Edison had once promised. But when Tesla brought this up, Edison just smirked and said it was only a joke. Unable to tolerate it any longer, Tesla left Edison's company. And this was when everything began to reverse. Tesla quickly attracted the attention of the Westinghouse Corporation, and this company agreed to build alternating current power plants using the technology invented by Tesla. Tesla also managed to patent his series of ideas, officially laying the foundation for the famous AC/DC war. Hearing that Westinghouse wanted to develop alternating current, Edison immediately counterattacked. He started a propaganda campaign claiming that AC was extremely dangerous, even conducting a series of experiments electrocuting dogs, cows, horses, and even an elephant to prove that Tesla's technology was unusable. But no matter how hard Edison tried, reality couldn't be changed. Alternating current was more efficient, safer, and suitable for large-scale use. Therefore, if we have to say who won this war, the answer is quite clear: Nikola Tesla. And after the war of which electrical current dominates the world between Edison and Tesla, now we move on to another equally vital confrontation, but on a scale so massive that the sky itself is divided in two. Airbus and Boeing. This confrontation is not just about which company builds bigger or more modern planes. Simply put, this is a game worth more than $160 billion, directly affecting the economies of many countries, creating jobs for hundreds of thousands of people, and serving as the national pride of both the US and Europe. Boeing had a long period of dominating the sky, like an uncrowned king, but by 2003, Airbus, a subsidiary of the European Aerospace Corporation, unexpectedly pulled ahead, and from here, the tense atmosphere between the two sides truly heated up. At this point, the war was no longer contained within the factories. It spread straight into politics. Trade officials from both sides continuously used the press to criticize each other, accusing the opponent of receiving subsidies, dumping prices, and manipulating the market. In short, neither side was willing to yield a single step. In 2011, a leaked source showed that the US president at the time, Mr. Bush, had sent a letter to King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia, gently suggesting they should buy Boeing planes. Also, that same year, Airbus received billions of dollars in subsidies, making the war even more tense, as each side thought they were the victim and the rival was the dirty player. The competition between Airbus and Boeing, therefore, is not just about who flies higher, further, or safer, but an economic and political confrontation lasting decades, where just one wrong government decision or one major contract lost to the rival is enough to shift the global balance. And if the confrontation between Airbus and Boeing takes place in the sky, now we land on the ground to see one of the most colorful competitions in the supercar world. Ferrari and Lamborghini legend has it that in the 60s, Mr. Ferruccio Lamborghini, who was then a wealthy businessman manufacturing tractors, was dissatisfied with the Ferrari he owned. Simply put, he found it too noisy and too difficult to drive. And most importantly, Mr. Enzo Ferrari didn't care to listen to his customers' feedback. At this point, Ferruccio became furious and said a historic phrase: "If Ferrari can't make a satisfactory car, I'll build it myself." And so, Lamborghini was born. At first glance, the supercars from these two brands seem similar, both flashy, powerful, expensive, and both from Italy. Even their logos both use animals, Ferrari with the prancing horse, Lamborghini with the raging bull. But actually, the competition between these two brands is a bit one-sided. Ferrari far exceeds Lamborghini in sales, brand value, and global popularity. As for Lamborghini, despite creating cars with extremely bold designs, it has never surpassed Ferrari's sales volume. Up to 2010, after more than 75 years of roasting each other on the track and in the showrooms, this war still continues. But there's a rather interesting thing. Both sides respect each other. Ferrari admits that Lamborghini makes crazy but beautiful cars, while Lamborghini also admits that Ferrari is the standard of sophistication and class. In short, this is a confrontation where the more they fight, the more luxurious they become. And it's also one of the rivalries that brings the most joy to car lovers worldwide. And if Ferrari and Lamborghini created a speed war on the racetrack, now we move to another arena that is equally thrilling, between two names that have shaped sportswear culture for decades: Nike and Reebok. Their beginnings weren't actually that different. Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, quit a stable accounting career to import running shoes from Japan to sell in the US. Meanwhile, Paul Fireman, the creator of Reebok, dropped out of college in Boston to take over his family's business and later acquired the rights to distribute soft-soled shoes from the UK to the North American market. But at this time, Nike made a rather huge mistake. They only targeted men and ignored a massive market, women. Consequently, in 1987, Reebok unexpectedly surpassed Nike and took the top spot. However, the story didn't end there. Eventually, Nike reclaimed the throne after signing a contract with the legend Michael Jordan. Air Jordan became one of the most iconic shoe lines in sports history. Seeing this, Reebok wasn't about to give up. They immediately responded by signing Shaquille O'Neal, one of the most influential NBA players at that time. And so, the war between these two brands continued continuously for many years. But in 2005, everything changed when Adidas bought Reebok. You'd think Reebok would be stronger standing behind a giant like Adidas, but in reality, Adidas plus Reebok combined still couldn't defeat Nike. This is a prime example of the saying, in the world of sportswear, Nike is not just a brand, but almost a culture. And after these battles in the sportswear industry, we return to a more familiar arena, cars. When mentioning competition in the American auto industry, almost everyone immediately thinks of this duo, Ford and General Motors. Ford was founded in 1903, and just 9 years later, General Motors was born. And from that moment on, you could say the war had begun and has now lasted over 100 years. An interesting fact is that the headquarters of these two companies are exactly 199 kilometers apart. Therefore, bumping into each other, competing, and taunting each other happens almost annually, even quarterly. If Ford launches a new model, General Motors immediately downplays it. And when General Motors releases a new product line, Ford quickly finds a way to respond. They've had some very dramatic face-offs. In 2011, Jim Farley, Ford's marketing executive, bluntly declared, "I hate them and their products." In response, Dan Akerson, chairman and CEO of General Motors, didn't hold back either. He suggested the idea of splashing holy water on Ford's Lincoln cars as a way of mocking that the brand needed to be cleansed. Simply put, the war between Ford and General Motors isn't just about product competition. It's like a cultural war where the two biggest American car brands always find ways to prove, we are the true symbol of the auto industry. And up until now, this confrontation shows no signs of stopping. And next, we come to a completely different battle, one where people don't compare who sells more, but rather who defines class. Louis Vuitton and Gucci. First is Louis Vuitton. It represents stability and power. From travel trunks over a century ago to handbags today, Louis Vuitton has always maintained the image of a brand that doesn't need to chase trends. The Louis Vuitton logo appears densely, but it's not loud in a show-off way. It's like it's saying, this is an item for someone who is already at the top and doesn't need to prove anything else. Simply put, luxury for Louis Vuitton is heritage. It's what you put your money into, and it almost never goes out of style. It provides a sense of security, like buying this means you can't go wrong. Gucci, on the other hand, goes in the complete opposite direction. Gucci is volatility, rebellion, and continuous change. This brand frequently reincarnates, changes creative directors, changes aesthetics, and even intentionally causes controversies to keep its image fresh. Gucci doesn't say you are successful. Gucci says you are different. Bold colors, daring patterns, sometimes a bit confusing, but extremely appealing to wealthy youth, those who want to express their personality rather than their status. Therefore, the confrontation between Louis Vuitton and Gucci is not about sales volume, but about who captures the hearts of the luxury consumer generation. One side is endurance and stability with a traditional touch. The other side is rebellion, novelty, and constant change. And in the luxury world, victory doesn't belong to the loudest, but to the one who makes people want to associate their image with that brand the longest. And to wrap up this video, let's step into the modern retail sector, where the war revolves around who defines human shopping habits. Amazon and Walmart. Walmart was once considered the undisputed king. Thousands of supermarkets covering the US, low prices, massive warehouses, and a supply chain so smooth it was scary. For decades, Walmart almost completely controlled the weekend grocery shopping habits of hundreds of millions of families. But then, Amazon appeared. No stores, no checkout counters, no need for customers to step outside. With just one click, goods automatically run to your doorstep. And most importantly, Amazon started collecting buyer behavior data, something Walmart barely possessed at that time. So, from here, the war truly heated up. Amazon didn't just sell things, they built an entire ecosystem around delivery speed, recommendation algorithms, and the Prime service. This made customers too lazy to compare prices, look elsewhere, or even leave Amazon. Walmart was forced to change. They poured money into e-commerce, bought tech startups, developed in-store pickup services, and utilized the advantage Amazon didn't have: a physical supermarket network located right next to every residential area. Simply put, Amazon represents the future where data decides everything, while Walmart is the last stronghold of traditional retail trying to digitize itself. We can't conclude who wins this war yet because what they are fighting over isn't just revenue, but the power to shape humanity's daily shopping habits. And whoever controls that habit wins. And those are the legendary rival pairs in the business world that we just reviewed in the video. Remember to hit like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the latest content. Thank you for watching to the end of the video, and for now, goodbye.